And we're on.
No intro music. We're just here. What happened? Hey guys, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Chrisley Kennedy. This is the show where we bring you the day's biggest movie news, and of course we give you insight into what it all means. Joining me as always is our AMC Movie News Editor-in-Chief, Mr. John Campea.
Well, welcome to the land of technical errors, everybody. My name is John Campea. Welcome to the show, coming to you live from the Stream.tv studios here in Hollywood, California, and we are so delighted you decided to make us part of your day.
We also have joining us AMC's very own Christian Harloff.
Sorry.
And I'm Christian Harloff.
Sorry. What's going on, guys? Nice to see you. How you doing, Chrisley?
I'm doing well. And we also have special guest today from the Schmoes Know podcast, Mark Ellis.
Just doing my Chrisley impression here. Oh, hey! How are you? Cameras!
All right, well, listen, guys, not the biggest piece of movie news today. This happens like once or twice a month, but the biggest piece of movie news today was apparently Evangeline Lilly getting a new haircut. And so we decided every once in a while, when we get an opportunity to squeeze in a bunch more of the mailbag questions you guys send in, we decided to just take a show and just do that. So today it's all mailbag, but I'm going to let you know we are still going to leave some time at the end of the show to take some live questions from you guys. And for those of you who are watching us live, you can tweet in questions to @AMC Movie News. And at the end of the show, Chrisley will pick out a few and we'll address some of those too. But for this episode, we're just going to take mailbag questions until that time. So, Chrisley, start us off.
Are you sure you're ready?
I'm almost ready.
All right, James Walsh writes, "Hey AMC, and thank you for my daily movie news. My question is, why is Marvel bringing back John Slattery as Howard Stark in Ant-Man when they had already replaced him with Dominic Cooper?"
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, John actually, in Iron Man 2, was it that we see the senior?
Oh,
yeah, it's Iron Man 2. Yeah. When Tony Stark is looking at the old home videos, just happened to come across the one where he reveals the big secret to everything, and how he knew it, I don't know. But we saw John as, of course you'll recognize him if you watch Mad Men, playing Tony Stark's dad. Well, then in later films, they brought in Dominic Cooper to play the younger version of his dad. This makes sense to me, though. They've already established this is the older Tony Stark, or what was Tony's dad's name?
Robert? No, Robert Stark's from.
Let's say
Papa Stark.
Let's say Papa Stark. So he played Howard Stark.
Yeah.
That was it. He played Howard Stark. So it kind of makes sense to me if you're doing the older Howard Stark to go back and get that guy again. I think it's a really nice move, and probably a little bit easier than going and grabbing Dominic Cooper right now. So I like the idea.
Yeah, I think just echoing the same things that you said is the fact that we've set up the very younger version back in those days. It's nice to see him come back because it's also a question of where the character changed significantly from where he was a little bit more open and warm in those Captain America.
Right. He was the playboy like Tony.
He was, and then something happened, and he obviously, we know from what we've developed so far in the Marvel Universe.
Well, he had a kid. That kills your life, right?
Well,
right?
I know. I had no comment. But I will say that you'll see more. There's been so much going on, especially what we revealed in the Captain America in the last one. There's more that's happened to him. So to see this version of him again, I think it makes perfect sense.
And plus, now that Marvel is part of Disney, that looks exactly like Walt Disney intro
right?
Disneyland. I think it also may not even be a character issue as much of a scheduling conflict. If Dominic Cooper wasn't available, I don't know who they went after first, but I think that they decided that Ant-Man is not worth postponing or having any other rescheduling issues or anything. So whoever is available to play Howard Stark at this moment, whether it's Slattery or Dominic Cooper, get that guy because I think they're both going to be fine in the role.
Now, here's a question for both of you guys, and I honestly don't know. My first assumption when they said they were bringing him back was more old footage, probably him and Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Back when Michael Douglas was a bit younger, maybe coming up with the first concepts for the Ant-Man project, whatever. Could Howard Stark still be alive? Like could they age him up with makeup and actually have Howard Stark still alive?
I don't think so. I think you should go into murky waters with that too, because then he starts coming back in more movies unless you kill him off, and there's another emotional moment. You got to have an Avengers, and there's going to be so much emotion in that in general, because once the reveal happens, it's like that moment in the Truman Show when the father and son unite. And I think you're right. I think it's archive footage, could be flashbacks. Right. There's a reason you have Michael Douglas in there, and to watch him, younger. Maybe they do makeup on Michael Douglas, make him look a little younger.
They probably do that.
So I think more likely flashback.
Or we could call it truce, and again, going back to the Disney thing, he could be frozen. He could be like frozen, and then maybe we can unfreeze him, maybe not, depending on the situation.
All right, what's next?
Joshua Herold writes, "Hi, AMC Movie Talk. I was wondering, what do you think of the idea of casting Benedict Cumberbatch to replace Daniel Craig in the sequel to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?"
Well, we talked on AMC Movie Talk the other day. Somebody had asked, like, well, what's the holdup with the sequel? And we said, well, there are several issues. I don't want to make it sound like it's just one thing. But one of the big issues was the fact that I believe Sony wanted Daniel Craig to take a bit of a pay cut from his original agreement. No, no, no. And it had a lot of things up. So the idea, well, what about replacing with Benedict Cumberbatch? I love Benedict Cumberbatch, but there are two problems here. Number one, Benedict Cumberbatch has yet to prove that he can actually lead a film.
Right.
Because he did that one WikiLeaks film, which The Sixth Estate, was that it?
Fifth, is it what it is?
Fifth Estate, Sixth Estate, Seventh Estate,
Estate.
whatever,
Yeah.
one of those. And that bombed horribly. And we haven't really seen him lead something yet. The other thing is I think he's too young. He just looks too young. The Daniel Craig character has been through a lot of crap, been through a lot of life already, and I just don't see Benedict being that right guy. Obviously talented enough to do it, no doubt about it. But is he the right guy to do it? I personally don't think so.
Well, I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch was mesmerizing as Julian Assange. I think the movie didn't do well for a number of different reasons that I think are out of Cumberbatch's control because it wasn't a huge blockbuster-style movie when it came out. I think that The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo would benefit from having him. Obviously, I'd rather see Daniel Craig reprise his role.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to have him, I don't mind it skewing a little bit younger and giving him more room to breathe. But whoever does it, I don't want it to become a James Bond thing where it's like, now we got to get somebody else to play this character in every film. I'd want somebody that can stick with the franchise for a while.
I agree.
I never like when actors that are established already in the franchise are replaced. Like it hardly ever works. Sometimes it does, but the one that you and I always throw
April O'Neil in Ninja Turtles.
Well, not that one. But
it so took me out of the movie.
Hugged to Paige Turco. She got so much
well,
hotter.
yeah, she's a lot hotter. But the Wesley Snipes and Omar Epps in the Major League franchise didn't work. There's a lot of other ones that didn't work, but. Different actors, for sure. Benedict Cumberbatch is a guy now that is literally rumored to play everything.
Everything, yeah.
Any movie that comes out, and like you said, I like him as Julian Assange as well. I thought that he's the guy's beyond talented, but like you said, he hasn't proven himself yet. I think he will. I think that in Cannes, he stood out the most in
he was great.
Right.
In that,
so
yeah.
I want to see him pop up in whether it be the Star Wars movies or as a Doctor Strange or something along those lines. I want to see that happen for sure. This one, I want to see Daniel Craig back because I liked what Daniel Craig brought to that character. I want to see what happens as it furthers along. I don't think they should have him do a pay cut. It's not his fault the movie didn't do what they expected.
Right.
So give him what they promised him in the contract, and let's get a second one on with him.
They're back in the day, man. Before we knew so much more that we know now about the new. Remember when I was still holding out hope that, man, Benedict Cumberbatch as a Grand Admiral Thrawn would be so badass.
Oh. Yeah. You still never know. You never know.
You never know. Fingers crossed. All right, what's next?
Nick F. writes, "Love the show. Been a fan for a year now. Never miss a mailbag or live movie talk.
Well,
I'm a huge comic book nerd and original X-Men cartoon. But anyway, the question is, do you feel or think we will see a point where Rogue obtains her ability to fly and have super strength? Keep up the great work and bring on the filthy."
Well, for those of you who know anything about the comic books, you know that the movie rendition that we see is a little out of date because in the comic books, and forever, Rogue is that Rogue.
Yeah.
Rogue is the one who could fly, invulnerable, super strength, like just all-around general badass, as well as her. Now, in the movie versions, all we saw was when she still had her absorption powers. No, we're never going to see her as that in the films because if I'm understanding it right, and I'm hoping I'm a bit wrong here, to be honest, but they are now going back to the first class cast, and that's going to be the cast moving forward. And so Rogue would have been an infant at that point. So I don't think we're going to see her back in this thing. Could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong because I really like the character, actually. I think she was a little bit misused after the first X-Men film, but I don't think we're going to see it. What do you guys think?
We're pretty far away from Days of Future Past. Can you spoil things yet, or are you still waiting for Blu-rays?
Yeah, we can spoil things.
Okay, so in regards to Days of Future
If you haven't seen Days of Future Past by now, you don't plan on seeing it.
Yeah,
so.
it's just the way that the timeline now works and everything's reset.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things with Rogue. Granted, she will be younger, but they'll be able to find
a
lot younger, but they can find her earlier. And if they go back and forth, what I am on the understanding of is yes, they're going to focus a lot on the first class crew, but they're also going to do more of a cut back and forth as well. From what I heard, I don't know how true it is or not, too, but it would be nice to see Cyclops and everyone else come back. And I don't think we'll ever see her fly and go to those powers because the X-Men movies that we have seen, although yes, we get the mutant powers, they're still grounded in a certain type of reality to where if you start having her fly with super strength and all that stuff too, you start going into a Superman realm as well, and those type of powers, it might even overshadow Apocalypse, which I don't want to do. I want to see Apocalypse be the main guy that can do all the really incredible stuff. So probably not.
Well, I think the X-Men films are grounded in the reality that we got to get Wolverine his screen time, and then everybody else is going to be thrown to the side a little bit. Now, Rogue was great. Her discovering Wolverine in the first film was awesome. I'm a huge fan of the comic books and the X-Men cartoon. I think you'll probably see a lot more spinoffs like that, so you may be able to see some sort of animated thing with Rogue having those superpowers. I think on the big screen, it's going to be tougher to pull off. I think it can happen with the introduction of the time travel element to where we can tell whatever story we think is the most interesting. I'd love to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, let me really geek out for a second. One of my favorite things ever. Everybody knows my favorite comic book story line of all time is The Age of Apocalypse. But in The Age of Apocalypse, this really geeks me out, and I still get geeked out over it. So, Magneto and the really old Magneto and the really young Rogue are actually hooking. They're hooked up. I don't know if they're actually married or if they're just each other's partners, whatever.
Yeah.
And let's say, wait a minute, and they have a kid, and then you think, well, wait a minute, how can that happen? Rogue can't touch anybody without killing him. Well, see, Magneto has the ability to create a microscopic thin magnetic field around his body, so when they're touching it and doing the filthy stuff, they're not actually touching. Now,
and it protects against all STDs. We should point that out.
Perfect. He is a living magnetic conduit. It's amazing. All right, what's next?
Angel Blaze writes, why hasn't there been any hint to Ultron in the latest Marvel movies? We got to know Loki before Avengers. Do you think the average moviegoer will actually care about this villain? After seeing all this year's Marvel films, it seems as though Thanos should have been the next villain. What up, yo?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Before the original Star Wars, there was no build-up to Darth Vader. Before the original, oh gosh, I was trying to think of the. Why am I forgetting the name of this? Die Hard. Before the original Die Hard, there was no build-up to Hans Gruber. Like you just meet them and you go. And well, why was there no mention of Ultron? Because Ultron doesn't exist in those other films yet. And so you don't need build-up to a villain to have a great villain. You don't need it. If you do it and you have the ability to build up to him like they're doing with Thanos, that's great. But it's not a necessary thing to make it work. I think he's going to be, especially when you got the voice of James Spader doing this, I think this is going to be a chilling villain. What do you think, Mark?
I understand the fear, the apprehension that now it's going to be something like what happened with, we didn't know anything about Darth Vader and we got him for the original trilogy. We didn't know anything about Darth Maul and we got him for a movie and he was a cool villain and then we lost him. So I think that's what people are afraid of, is that if we're not sprinkling Ultron into these other movies, are we just going to get him for one big bonanza, then he's done? Because Thanos has been sprinkled in. I'm not worried about this at all. I think with Loki, the main reason why we did know him is because they made a Thor standalone movie, and you got to know a little bit about that mythology. So you were forced to introduce him a little bit, whereas you're not as handcuffed with Ultron. So I actually like the fact that I'm going into this movie knowing very little about this villain.
And it's not like Loki was just some small side character that was alluded to, and then he's the villain in Avengers. He was the main antagonist in Thor. I mean, he was already the big bad guy, just brought into the next one.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, I love the fact that we don't know anything about him. And I didn't see the footage at Comic-Con, but from what I hear, the way that they just introduced him in that little trailer is amazing, and the things that he's saying and what he's going to do and the power that he's going to have. Let's introduce him and find out and know nothing about him. And I understand what was said in there was the fact that you're getting all this information through Marvel. Like you said, you're getting all this information, and we have seen Thanos, and we know that this connected universe, we're spoiled in a bit because we get teased in the end credit scenes.
We get all this every time.
We get all of that stuff, and in there you're like, well, where's Ultron? We haven't seen anything about him. You don't need to, because yes, we've seen Thanos. I don't want to see Thanos as the villain in the second Avengers at all, because that guy from that little that he did in Guardians of the Galaxy, he is plotting something. He is the Darth Vader of this entire thing. He's the guy that, or the Emperor, if you will, and there's going to be something big by the time you get to the third one. What you talk about Darth Maul, how you didn't get to build enough with him, they're building with Thanos. By the time we get to Thanos in Avengers 3,
which is 2017,
but you're like, bring it. That's it. Finally, it all comes to a head. You can start having him pop in, and who knows what happens to Ultron.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Eric Castleberg writes, hello, my favorite movie crew. There have been comments on past shows that many directors, such as Michael Bay, are talented directors, just a bit of sellouts, pandering to what sells movies more so than what makes a good movie. My question is this: why does Spielberg get a pass? He is constantly attaching his name to projects for a check, and then people say, oh, he wasn't really involved. It wasn't his fault.
Well, here's the thing about this. You've never heard me say any director is a sellout on this show. You've never heard me say that. And the reason you've never heard me say that is because I believe that's nonsense. Wait a minute. So somebody who has a profession taking a job in exchange for money is selling out?
Yeah.
Really? Then I'm sorry. Then your dad was a sellout. Your dad took a check to go and do some job building cars or plumbing or building people's homes or whatever. Well, then he's a sellout. You go to your job every day. Would you go do it for free? Wait, you would stop going to your job if they stopped giving you a paycheck? Well, then you're a sellout. No, it's nonsense. And somebody like Steven Spielberg, where, look, somebody who can sit back and say, look, on top of directing, he produces. And people want to come to him and say, can you help us put this project together so we can run with it? He says, sure, this is my fee for doing stuff like that. Cool, here's your fee. All right, I'll help you at the outset, getting it put together. Here are your pieces. Go ahead, go make your movie. I don't see how in any sense, like we like to sit back and point at people and make up things like, oh, you're a sellout if you do that. That's bull. It's absolute bull crap. And it's nonsense. It's whatever. These are professionals who have a trade and they do their trade in exchange for money. That's not selling out, that's doing your job. So anyway, that's just my thought. No, he's not selling out.
The difference, what I think a sellout, for if you want to define it, is someone who, if Quentin Tarantino started doing movies like Michael Bay out of nowhere, just for certain, he's still making money or whatnot, but if he's selling out of what he is known for just to collect checks anyway, I think that's more or less where it goes down to. I don't think that's Michael Bay. I think Michael Bay, I'm not a fan of his at all, and I don't like majority of his movies, but that's what he does. That is his style.
And I think he loves his movies.
He loves to do it. I think he knows, he loves to do what he does. He knows, that's the thing. And as Spielberg, when he's doing Lincoln, and even Warhorse and movies like that, he's not selling out. He's directing what he directs, and he stays on course. So as far as putting your names to stuff, if you believe in the project and you think that like you said, you can add your insight and help out, get the movie off the ground, and believe that it's going to make money, I don't think that's selling out. I think because Transformers, Steven Spielberg produced, right? Right. Aliens is Steven Spielberg's forte. The special effects, knowing what he's done in the past, his partnership with ILM and doing all that stuff as well. That's someone you want to produce your film, so it made sense, and the movie made a lot of money. So I don't think that's probably why he doesn't get called out.
I love bar arguments like this. I think Steven Spielberg would be a sellout if he directed a Burger King commercial where E.T. rode Jaws through the drive-thru. That's him being a sellout. He's not a sellout when he produces a movie that isn't as good because, again, there's a lot of times when you can't control certain aspects of your trade, especially when you're a director and you get handcuffed by a studio or whoever your producer is. And I think that the difference between Steven Spielberg and Michael Bay is that Steven Spielberg has a little bit better of a resume than Michael Bay does. Right. So Steven Spielberg, while I'm not giving him a pass, he's proven time and time again, and even recently, what a creative force he is with something like Lincoln or even something like Warhorse, and then obviously he's got the greatest film resume in history, whereas Michael Bay, as a director, you're like, oh yeah, hey, remember The Rock? That was good, right? They had a couple cool car chases.
Somebody's going to be sending us a graphic of E.T. riding Jaws through a Burger King drive-thru now.
Can I take that back? Because that's no longer Steven Spielberg being a sellout, because we don't really, the fans want to see that commercial.
I want to see that movie.
If that trailer came out, we'd all be lined up around a block like E.T. back in '82.
But I also think with the term sellout, there's a little bit of a connotation of hypocrisy with the term sellout, right? So let's say you had Steven Spielberg. This is when I would say Steven Spielberg is a sellout. Is Steven Spielberg the type of guy who throughout his career was always saying, romantic comedies are trash and they have no place in Hollywood? If he was a guy who was always saying that, there should be no romantic comedies are trash and garbage, but then Paramount comes to him and says, we'll pay you $180 million to direct this rom-com, and then he goes, oh, okay.
Right.
That's selling out. Right. I mean, to me.
Going against your beliefs and what stances that you have made just for the cash. Yeah.
Agree. Yeah. All right, what's next?
Oops, sorry. Andrew Harris writes, hey, movie gang, with the original Star Wars cast having aged quite considerably, do you think this could backfire like it did with Indiana Jones 4? While I can't wait to see these iconic characters return to the big screen, part of me is nervous it may be too distracting. What do you guys think? Thanks, and keep up the great work.
Well, with Indiana Jones 4, the thing is, there was a lot of things wrong with Indiana Jones 4, but the age of Harrison Ford, to me, personally, that wasn't one of the problems. I didn't see that as one of the issues. One of the issues to me was not that he could still use his whip or that he could run over all the crates in the warehouse. The issue to me was that the movie was stupid. Yeah. I mean, that ultimately, when it really comes down to it, that's the big problem with the movies. That was a bad movie. So I don't think age is the problem. Like talking about Expendables 3, I actually didn't think Expendables 3 was the big piece of trash that a lot of people think it was. And I thought Stallone still held up, and he was older. He's as old as, at any rate, I think, as Harrison Ford, which, by the way, was also in the movie.
Right.
By the way, I said this on the show the other day. I'll say it again. That scene in the van, though, with Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
If you gave out an Oscar for best performance in a single scene, that would be my front runner.
Great in that
oh my
scene.
gosh! Let's open up that meat jacket and I'll show your own heart. Like that was. But
he didn't know he was being filmed though during that part.
He had no clue he was in the movie. I heard meat jacket, and I love those clips when it's like I had to think about it for a minute, and the theater had to think for 2 seconds, and they're like, meat. He's talking about his skin. I got you.
But I think, I don't think age is the problem, or was a problem with Indiana Jones 4. So I'm not I mean, look, it might be. Maybe it'll become a big distraction for us. But I don't think it will. I think it'll be okay.
Don't forget, and I always say this first, is that I love what George Lucas has done. He has given away the franchise to Disney and knows that someone else, a new creative team, is going to handle that. That being said, when he was doing both Star Wars and Indiana Jones, it was a dictatorship. It was. We're going to talk about Frank Darabont. Frank Darabont wrote a great script for Indiana Jones, and it was approved by both by Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, and Lucas. Not the direction I wanted to go to. I want to do this. I want to do that. It just was in a different place. And so, like you said, it didn't have anything to do with the age. Because I liked when Marion came back. That was cool.
So did I.
It wasn't awkward that they were older. It was awkward that there was Shia LaBeouf swinging from the trees with the monkeys, and it's like, what's happening here with aliens? So it's very possible that this could happen. You could be like, oh, that's awkward that they're trying to make Harrison Ford do that, or they're trying to make Luke do that. But I think that the creative team knows what they have, and you have to play to the strengths of your actors.
Yeah. My favorite part about Indiana Jones 4 was seeing Harrison Ford and Karen Allen back. Right. And the age didn't bother me. I thought it actually was a plus to the movie. I like seeing where he's been since there. And these are like my 3 favorite characters in movie history. So I can't wait to see what they've been up to. And the fact they look older, it'd be weirder if they tried to CGI them the same age, or if they weren't in the movie, but we were still in the future of Star Wars, and everybody was walking around like, hey, remember that Luke guy? He was cool. And they just have like a framed mural of him. We need to see them in this movie.
You know, speaking of which, remember how much everybody erupted when they did that first little video of, oh, and look who's here on set of this new Indiana Jones 4 with us, and there's Marion. Yeah. And like everybody lost their minds. Like that was the coolest thing.
When they first revealed Luke, and I still think Luke won't appear for at least a half an hour, 45 minutes in the movie, whenever it is. The first time you see him, an older Luke waiting with that beard. They're going to lose their minds. I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to see it. I've already probably seen it like 4 times again. I can't wait to see how they reveal these characters. First time you reveal any of the older characters and how they set up and what they've been doing.
It's the first time that I'll see a man with a beard and I immediately start crying. Yeah. Besides the time with my uncle. That's a different story.
All right, what's next?
Kosalsaic writes, greetings and salutations, sons and daughters of AMC. My question is about Frank Darabont. After directing Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, and The Majestic, there is a lack of credits in directing until The Mist. And I was wondering why he is not directing films anymore. I know he is working on The Walking Dead, but it seems like his career would have keep rising after Shawshank and Green Mile.
I'm not sure how much he's working on Walking Dead these days.
No,
I don't think at all. Shawshank Redemption, it's in my top 10, maybe my top 5 all-time greatest motion pictures ever. Yeah. It's just incredible. Green Mile, an excellent film. Look, it really could be one of those things where maybe he just didn't want to direct. I don't think he has a reputation for being difficult to work with or anything like that. You may get a different story from people at AMC, the television network. You might get a different story from them. It could be just one of those things where he maybe didn't want to direct. He does have another movie coming out, the Snow White and the Huntsman prequel or sequel. He's going to do The Huntsman, which I did not care about at all, but suddenly hearing Frank Darabont is going to be directing, he's like, oh, okay, well, let's see what they're going to do with this. So that could be interesting. Have you guys heard anything different?
No, I heard that he apparently he wrote the first draft of the Godzilla script as well too. His writing, he's been writing for years.
Yeah, he loves writing.
He loves writing. He's been writing. A lot of time when you check IMDb and stuff, you don't see all the credits of what he has because he has been writing. We just talked about the Indiana Jones thing. That's nowhere to be found on his IMDb credits. He's been doing stuff. He's been very active. He just hasn't been directing, and it took a while to develop that AMC show. That was all him. He's the reason that all went through is because of the work that he did. You might hear different things in regards of how difficult he might. I wouldn't necessarily say he's difficult as much as he's particular. in what he does, and that to me is a very strong trait in a director, and that's why I like the stuff that he does. And Shawshank is one of my top 5 or 10 of all times as well. So I'm excited to see him get back, and not just because Kristen Stewart's not on the thing anymore, but the fact that it's just Hemsworth and him doing something new and a new take. I think we can get something special.
Mark?
I'm always up for whatever that guy's doing. I like so much of his work, but I mean, the dude's a writer, and sometimes they need to go away for a little while for their own artistic purposes. Like J.D. Salinger holed himself up in a cabin for like decades. So I think sometimes you just need to take a break, and I don't know what was going on in his personal life, but there's a gap in a lot of his work between like 2001 and 2006 or 7 when he actually wrote and directed The Mist. So he might have just been cooking up a lot of scripts, a lot of ones that got passed on. Maybe he was working on this great Indiana Jones script and this great Godzilla script. And this great, maybe he was writing the Spielberg Burger King commercial and nobody liked his script. They wanted to rework it, and that can depress you, especially if you're an artist and somebody is constantly taking your work and redoing it, and they're kind of bastardizing your interpretation of it. That can get annoying after a while. So maybe you're just like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to take a break from everything. Right. That's probably what he ended up doing.
And I think that Indiana Jones thing really rubbed him the wrong way, because I know it did. I know that he had a big problem with George Lucas from it, and he publicly stated it a couple of times too, and that took a lot of work. He was working on that for a very long time, and I think you can still find the script somewhere on the internet.
But he wasn't upset about old Harrison Ford in it. He loved
that. Yeah. He loved him. Well, he used that part of it. Yeah.
All right, so, well, folks, I said we would leave a little bit of time at the end of the show. We've got a couple of minutes left, so you can tweet in some questions to us live. Once again, that's at AMC Movie News. Chris Lee is in charge of which questions get picked over there. So, Chris Lee, what do we have?
Ezra Cubiero writes, hey guys, love the show. What was the most fun theater experience you've had so far this year?
This year would probably have to be the Lego Movie for me. Like I was just doing this coming out of theater, and I sang that. I'm still to this day every once in a while I got that stupid song in my head, and I start singing out loud. So, pure fun. Yeah, it might have been that one.
Raid 2.
Raid, yeah, that was great.
Like there wasn't even, maybe 30, 40 people in the theater I saw, but you could feel the adrenaline going through everyone during every scene. People's eyes were just fixated on the action that was going on, and you literally felt like you were watching a UFC fight during one of them, like a great UFC fight. You're like, whoa, 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 and you don't know what's going to happen. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, Christian and I saw the Raid 2 together, and there was a gentleman sitting to Christian's other side that was just reacting to the Raid every fight scene, and it was every time blood hit the screen, this guy was going crazy, and it was hilarious. My answer is Godzilla. I don't care that some people were bored. I wasn't. I liked the whole movie, and the end, when Godzilla does what he does, I was actually laughing. Like, it was the only emotion that could come out of me. I was so excited to see this guy on screen doing what he was doing to the other animals. So,
Edge of Tomorrow's another one, too.
Oh yeah, that one was really fun. That one part in Godzilla, though, both times. The first time he does the nuclear breath.
Yeah.
And then the second time he does the nuclear breath.
Because I forgot that he had that for a minute. Then I saw some blue lights, and I'm like, "What is that? He's got this. He's gonna do it."
But that scene when he's grabbing the mouth, I'm thinking, we're gonna get a really cool King Kong shot, with the T-Rex, and he pulls it in. No, just opens his mouth. Here we come, baby. Oh my God, that was so awesome.
Thing of beauty.
Okay, what's next?
Terrence Page wants to know, who is a better actor in their prime, Paul Newman or Jack Lemmon?
Oh my God.
Talk about Sophie's choice.
There's no right answer here.
I don't know. Yeah, I think, that's tough.
There is a right answer.
Paul Newman?
I'm going to say Jack Lemmon, because I think that comedy always gets a little underrated, and Jack Lemmon could do drama or comedy with a deft touch on both. And Paul Newman, I'm sure. Am I missing? Was he ever in a comedy? I know that he probably had funny lines in movies, but I don't know that he ever did a comedy.
Well, something that you would consider a straight-up comedy. I don't know about that. There's certainly a lot of his films that had comedy as a part of it. But like, I'm gonna you can't go wrong with Jack Lemmon. I'm gonna slightly lean towards Paul Newman, ever so slightly. Like, partially because out of the two of them, so dead even, so I'm going to go with the person who gave me, I think, the most memorable movie out of the two, and for me, this is going to be Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke, that's right.
Like, when you watch Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke, it's like that's Hollywood, man. Like, that's...
He's old. They're both great, but I'd probably go the edge with Paul Newman as well, too.
You salad dressing lovers, I can't believe
I'm a sellout.
Race car loving, salad dressing, guzzling.
It's just, there was something about him with it. He was a guy's guy. He was that movie star, old school Hollywood thing, and set the bar for other actors. It's hard. It's hard because
you guys are making me a grumpy old man.
No.
Look at the reference. Such a great question, though. I mean, it's an awesome question. All right. Anyway, what's next?
Ann Curtis wants to know, what happened to the Phantom Tollbooth remake? Are they still making it?
I'll confess I am completely unaware of what we're talking about.
Same here.
I'll give you guys the update on the Phantom Tollbooth. It was made, and it's in a closet somewhere in Burbank, and we're looking into it. We're looking into it.
All right, what's next?
Yamil Diaz says, do you think Evangeline Lilly will be the Wasp and Ant-Man or not?
I think they're certainly setting up that it looks that way. If I had to put money on it, I'd say sure. But I'm not willing to put money on it.
I'm going to say yes because and I think that we talked about this last time, was that we're getting to a point now, once we get to the end of phase 2, that eventually these contracts are going to run out for the main characters, whether it be the Iron Mans, the Black Widows. We have to start setting up new characters now, briefly. So maybe the Wasp turns into someone that becomes like the new Black Widow of the later on down the line. Who knows? But you have to set up new characters now, so it makes sense that they would have her, not just a throwaway character.
I totally agree. I think she's a little bit too big of a name for somebody to just be in this film. I think that she's going to play a bigger role in the universe than it's being let on right now. Yeah. She's totally the Wasp.
Can I say, I love her. I love her. Good Canadian girl, by the way. All right, one last question.
Oh, I'm not going to pick that one then. Dr. Horrible wants to know favorite martial arts movie of all time.
It's a tie for me, two of them. One is an old school, I think it's from like 1971. It's called Shaolin versus Lama. If you don't know it, find it. No other else will you find a line that says, let's fight, and if you beat me, you will be my master. And if you beat me, you will be my master. If I beat you, you will not. But if you beat me, you may use this stick to beat me for my insolence. It is one of my favorite things. And then at the end, the bad guy starts literally slapping himself in the head, open palm, and saying, I must die to prove that Buddha exists. I have no idea what that meant to this day, but it was awesome. The other one, far more cheesy, the original Best of the Best.
Oh, nice.
With Eric Roberts.
Good call.
And James Earl Jones, for some reason. Sure. James Earl Jones is the coach of the U.S. Taekwondo team. I don't see it, but great. He was awesome in it. So, what about you guys?
For me, if I'm going to do two, I do Enter the Dragon, which is one of my
classic
favorite movies of all time. Just that tournament style and just everything going on in that movie. The fights are incredible. But Bloodsport with Van Damme.
The original Bloodsport, Bolo Young.
Frank Dukes. That was a movie I remember seeing as a kid. Just being that was when I was first introduced to what Van Damme really could do as a martial artist film star. And there's just some great stuff going on there. They don't take risks like that in certain martial arts movies now. I thought it was cool.
Biggest pecs I've ever seen on an Asian dude.
Oh, Bolo Young. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I would probably go. The first Jackie Chan movie I saw was Rumble in the Bronx. I know that was later in his career, but that was the one that really turned me on to that dude. Van Damme would obviously be hard target, and for hilarity, you got to go Steven Seagal, Hard to Kill. He wakes up in a coma after like 8 years, and he learns martial arts again in a week.
It's like riding a bike. It's muscle memory. It's muscle memory. All right, folks, that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us today for AMC Movie Talk. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, you look at the description of this video for our podcast feed. And, of course, click the thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to thank the guys sitting at the table with me. First of all, Mr. Christian Harloff. Christian, where can people find you online?
You can find me, Christian Harloff, on both Twitter and Instagram. And keep up the great movie conversations there. I'm loving them.
And, of course, our special guest today, Mr. Mark Ellis. Thanks for being here, Mark. Where can people find you online?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can just check out our Schmoes Know Facebook page. Click like on that. Follow us at Schmoes Know. And my Twitter's at 5150 Ellis. Long live Van Halen.
And, of course, our host today, Miss Chris Lee Kennedy. Chris Lee, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on social media at Chris Lee.
And, of course, you can find me on all the various social media channels, just at John Capia. Thanks a lot for joining us today, guys. My name is John Capia for AMC Movie News. And until next time, bye-bye.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.